Here comes the best, the most well-rounded, best-smelling, nothing off-limits podcast in the world. Welcome to Quadcast with Kortney Olson, the woman with the world's deadliest thighs. Let's get ready to mumble!
Welcome back, bitches, to another episode of... Oh, anyway, I have Zuby. Zuby is sitting here in front of me, which is incredible because I had stumbled across his Twitter back in 2019 when I saw that you... Tell us.
Well...
You're like, thanks for the introduction, bitch. We'll circle back to that.
Misgendered so many times in the first 1 minute of a podcast. Didn't even establish my pronouns.
I'm sorry.
As the British women's deadlift record holder and bench press. I think that's what you were referring to?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, I broke the British women's deadlift record back in February 2019. And it went very viral all over the world internationally. Put me on millions of people's radar. As far as I know, I'm not sure if anyone has beaten that record. But... yeah, we live in strange and interesting times.
Don't we just?
We do. I mean, the video specifically on Twitter has 4 million views, but I know the tweet thread has like 15 or 20 million impressions.
Oh my gosh.
And then it went viral on YouTube. It went viral on Instagram, Facebook, and then it was all over TV as well in the UK and in the US. And, you know, that's how Joe Rogan discovered me. It's how a lot of podcasters discovered me through that, and media people, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Steven Crowder. So many people reacted to it. Piers Morgan. So many people reacted and responded to that back then, and it was crazy. It was crazy to give you some context. I mean,
yeah, give us the background.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Let me run it back a little bit. So, I'd been keeping an eye on a lot of the crazy sociocultural, political stuff that's been going on. Not just in the U.S., not just in the U.K., but across the entire Western world, and especially the Anglosphere, over the past, especially the past 8 years at this point. But I think by 2015, it had become like really noticeable that we were entering what we now call clown world. And I'd been keeping an eye on this and, you know, listening to various things, having private conversations with people. At this point, you know, I was just an independent rapper in the U.K. I wasn't really using Twitter or any other platform to speak on some of these issues and give my commentary on what's going on in the world, which is what a lot of people know me for now. And in 2017, 2018, I started to see these stories of males identifying as women and competing in women's sports. I saw it happen, that whole Fallon Fox situation in MMA. Right. And then there were some incidents in everything from rugby to basketball to weightlifting. I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like, this is ludicrous, right? But also, this is the natural endpoint and conclusion of the idea that anyone can identify as whatever they want, and then they magically become that thing, and everyone needs to accept and affirm that thing. I was like, this is the natural consequence of it, right? And then in February 2019, I was actually running one of my pop-up shops at the time. I used to do stores all around the UK where I'd sell my music and my merchandise in different shopping malls. And I'd been to the gym that morning, and then it was early in the day. I was just at my store kind of waiting for it to pick up. It's around 9 a.m. And I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I see 2 separate stories of 2 males beating females in their sports. I think one was in high school, one was at college level, both in the USA, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is so stupid. Like, this is just dumb. Like, well, what are we heading towards as a species, as a society? And then I was like, I wonder what the women's deadlift record is. Right? I've got a strong deadlift. It's my best lift. And I was like, I wonder what the British women's record is. So I looked it up for my weight class, which would have been around, I think it was the 84 kilogram weight class. And I think the female record in the UK was, I think it was 210 kilos. And my PB was 275. So I could lift more than 100 pounds more than the female record. And so I already had on my phone a video of me doing a 230 kilo deadlift, which is what's that in pounds? 500 something pounds.
Yeah, right.
Maybe 520, something like that. And it was just on my phone. I just walk up to the weight, pick it up very easily, and walk off. And so I went on Twitter and I posted that 9-second video. And I just wrote, this is why, if you look at the commentary on it, it's why I wrote it how I did. I wrote, I keep hearing about how biological men have no strength advantage over women in 2019. So watch me destroy the British women's deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. Right? So that was the tweet. That was the tweet.
Don't be a bigot.
That was it. I think that was the punchline, right? Yeah. That was it. 9-second clip. At the time I posted this, so people see my Twitter following now and they're like, oh, wow, this guy's got over 1 million followers. When I posted that, I had 18,000. So I didn't have a tiny account, but I built up through my music my account to 18,000 over the past 10 years. And when I posted this, I very quickly, this was my first time, like, I'd had a couple semi-viral posts before, but this was my first time going truly viral.
Yeah.
And I knew something was going on. I didn't know what was happening, but I very quickly, within minutes of hitting the tweet button, I was like, something is happening here. I don't know what. It's like I'd never seen the numbers
right
just going up, the likes, the retweets, I'd never seen the numbers just ticking up so quickly. Within about 10, 15 minutes, the video had 10,000 views. I was like, I don't know what is happening here. Within a few hours, 100,000 views. 200. By the time I go to bed that night, 300,000. I wake up in the morning, 500,000. Later that day, 1 million, 2 million, 3. And the following day, I also start getting contacted by all these media people.
Right.
Because this video has started to go viral and it's creating this massive stir all over. And, I check my email. I have emails from the BBC, Sky News, Fox News, like all these different platforms. So for weeks, that video was just going viral, just gaining traction. It started getting coverage in the news, literally on BBC, ITV, Sky News, Fox News. They're playing the video and saying, oh, this guy has just done this while identifying as a woman. Zuby's broken. And then I started doing all these interviews because they wanted to talk to me and be like, why did you do this? What's the point you're trying to make? Blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? And so this proceeded for a period of time. There was a very funny moment. One morning I woke up and my phone is going absolutely bananas. And everyone's like, yo, Joe Rogan just shouted you out. Joe Rogan's da-da-da, Joe Rogan. I'm like, what's happening, right? I'm in the UK at the time. And I listened to the most recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, and he's done a 2-minute section on it, right? And he gives me a massive shout out. He's like, man, shout out to you, Zuby. I'm following this guy right now. So he started following me on Twitter, da-da-da. And so that was my first time getting in touch with Joe Rogan. I DM'd him, we started chatting. And for months, this was such a life and career changing moment for me.
Right.
Despite the fact it had nothing to do with my music or anything that I was actually pursuing.
Because you were like schlepping CDs and
for years,
Right.
And I just started my podcast at the beginning of the year, January 2019.
Oh, so you started your podcast before this all went viral.
I did the tweet 26th of February 2019. I started my podcast January 2019.
Oh, wow.
And then in the spring, I released my first book, my fitness book, Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody. And at this time, my accounts were just growing, thousands of people every week just following, got to, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, just kept going up. And then fast forward a little bit, it gets to around August, and I got invited by Dave Rubin to go on his show, The Rubin Report, because he was living out in California at the time. So he was one of the first, big, actually, no, he wasn't the first, because I did Candace Owens' show when she came to the UK in London. And then I did some others. And then, I was going to come out to California to do Dave's show. And Joe Rogan was living in California at the time in LA. So I just messaged Joe and was like, hey, man, I'm going to be coming out to LA for the first time. Would be awesome to be on your podcast if you're up. And he was like, hell yeah, like definitely. So I went out to LA. I planned to be in the States for like 2 weeks. And I ended up staying for 3 months. I went to LA. I did, Rubin Report, Joe Rogan Show. Then Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire reached out and wanted to record a Sunday special. Adam Carolla reached out. I was suddenly on some of the biggest podcasts in the world. And this just went through. I ended up going to Texas. I went to Austin and Dallas for the first time. I went to Nashville. I went to DC, New York. I was just traveling around all over. And I even ended up, met with Tucker Carlson. I was on Fox News, just all these opportunities. And what really happened essentially is that it wasn't just my tweet that went viral. I went viral.
Yeah.
Tweets go viral all the time. Social media posts go viral all the time. Rarely does the person behind it really, in the long term, kind of gain from it.
Right.
But because of all the work I'd put in over the previous, at this point, honestly, like 12 or 13 years, and I'd built up my own credibility. People were hearing me speak, but oh wow, this guy's intelligent. He's got an interesting backstory.
Yeah, I haven't heard you cuss once.
I don't cuss.
Yeah.
No, I don't cuss at all. And so, people were drawn to me as a personality. People discovered my music, my podcast, all these other things that I was actually doing. It wasn't just like, oh, this guy made one funny tweet.
Right.
It was like, oh no, like this person is someone who
right.
is interesting and actually has a message. And, maybe you discovered me from this funny deadlift tweet, but that was 4 years ago now. So, I know, and you didn't know about that till today. So.
And that's exactly right. And that's what blew my mind. And we were sitting briefly chatting and you mentioned it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do remember seeing that. Cause we had sponsored a woman named 𝗪𝗥𝗢𝗏𝗧, and she actually, was formerly the world's strongest man, was a Marine.
Yeah, I think
private,
I know who that is.
Yeah, private security for, the 𝗪𝗥𝗢𝗏𝗧, right? And we had sponsored her, and this was, like I said, 2017, before this became what it is today. And I, over the last really 2 years, have been struggling with, sitting back and watching and not fully understanding and feeling very much like you, in the sense that you said clown world, right? And it's like, I always say, I always want to come from a place of love and understanding. And I reached out to her and I was like, listen, can you come out to Vegas? Because I need to hear some different voices. And when she came out, it was a trip because she was presenting as very masculine, if you will, right? So no wig, she can't grow her hair out, and we're doing jujitsu and went hiking, and she started explaining like all the things that she likes to do. And I'm telling you, dog, like through and through, she is a woman. Like, I'm like, we went to train chest, and I'm like, it's been 2 hours. Can you stop talking, babe? Like, let's get on with it and fucking lift some weights. Like, seriously. But just the nicest, kindest, sweetest person that I was so enthralled with, what she was saying, and being kind of like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way, or, oh, I didn't think of it this way, or, because at the end of the day, I'm like, clearly there's a political agenda to divide us. And I do 110% believe, yes, there are a very small number of people that are transgender and that they exist. And she literally, like, listening to, so she's got a documentary on Netflix called Transformer, and it's won some awards, and it was eye-opening to see and hear that story. So from the age of 5, knew that she was in the wrong body, didn't go to prom, even though she on the outside, like, world's strongest man and super athletic and on and on and on, but couldn't fathom putting on a tuxedo, and was just imagining, like, wanted to get dolled up and be in a dress like the rest of the girls. And so to hear her tell this story and get into it, and then, and again, brought up like Fallon Fox, because I felt like I went really lightly, right? Because it's been boiling over in me for some time when it comes to the sports aspect specifically. And so when she was speaking, I didn't bring up a lot of other things, because she was talking more about at like an Olympic level, right? And you're bringing up things around like high school and college, and it's like there is so much to unpack, and why has this happened? Where is it taking us? So yeah, back to you and finding you and you saying that, because I remember I saw your tweet, and I don't know what I said on it, but I was like, wow, that's magical. Even though, like, obviously I couldn't say anything, but I was like, yeah, that's pretty spot on. And then of course I came across you, and it, you randomly popped up in my For You page on Twitter, and it was I don't think it was this specific one, but it was a tweet like this that really resonated with me. And you said, what we are truly suffering with is a pandemic of narcissism. And that blew me on my ass because, as an alcoholic, and this is what I explained to Janae, I said, I don't go around to bars. And I don't go to Chevy's, or I'm trying to think of a chain in the UK.
Okay.
But you're nomad. You're basically American and everywhere else at this point, right? So, but like a Chevy's, or I'm trying to think of somewhere else. Any cafe or restaurant that has a bar, right? And bang on it and say, excuse me, you need to remove this bar from my line of sight because it's triggering. And I actually have a mental illness. Alcoholism and addiction is classified as a mental illness. And it is life-threatening and progressive and fatal if not treated. And get this shit out of my face. It's not fair.
Yes.
Right? And I don't expect the rest of society to go home and drink in their fucking closet by themselves.
Yep.
Also, mad respect for you for not cussing. We become the sum of the top 5 people we hang around. So maybe you and I should kick it a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe.
It's funny you say that because if people hang out with me a lot, they do tend to stop cussing and stop drinking.
Yeah.
It actually does happen.
Well,
not even because I like nudge them, but I think they're just like, man, I need to clean up.
Step my game up. The drinking part we got solved. It's just the cursing. I think it's because I have a lack of vocabulary, right?
I'm a rapper. I can help you with that.
Okay, there you go. You do. And I did listen to some of your songs as well. And I was like, oh, this guy's got a lot of stuff going on. That's incredible. But yeah, it's a bizarre situation that we have gotten ourselves into. And I feel that there's more than what is right in front of us, that there is a bigger agenda. Like and I said this to Janae and Dave, who sat on the podcast as well. And I was like, you too can believe what you want, but like, I truly see this as a push towards globalism, and them doing everything that they can to conquer and divide and making, turning everything into just
Subjective.
Exactly. Where do you even start, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you remove the concepts of objective reality and objective morality, I mean, I don't think you can, but if you attempt to, or you create a society and a culture where people no longer believe in objective morality and objective reality itself, then everything just comes down to opinions and feelings, right? It's
right.
Just, if I say that I feel that X is true, or I believe this about myself, then not only must that be tolerated, but it must be affirmed by everybody else. And this is where the line is massively crossed with a lot of these issues, because if you live in a society where, things are based around freedom and liberty, right? That's supposedly what the USA, for example, stands for. Not every country, that's their priority, but in the US it certainly is. But people are now taking that to mean that everybody else has to affirm and entertain everything that they believe, even if it is objectively false, right? So that's the biggest problem. I think that's why, it's ridiculous how much outsized attention this whole transgenderism conversation gets when you consider the fact that almost nobody is actually transgender, right? But I think it's giant conversation, not because it hits on so many of the other issues, right? This is when people are trying to force you to believe that a man can actually, literally, absolutely be a woman, or vice versa, that is what's the best way to put it? This is trying to force you to deny reality, right? So it's not as simple as, this isn't just about political correctness or politeness or being nice or whatever way people try to frame it, or respect, or
Yeah, don't be a bigot.
Yeah, no, but it's not, right? It is actually trying to force people to not only believe and repeat something, but to believe and repeat something which is objectively false, right? So if someone wants to believe that this table we're sitting at is square or rectangle, they can believe that if they want, but it's objectively false. The table is round, right? The table could identify as whatever it wants, but it is round. So if you want to say that it's a square and you want to call it a square, I mean, you have the right to do so. You have the right to say that the table is purple, it's green, it's got polka dots on it. You have a right to say all that, right? You can believe that. But as soon as you try to force me or try to demand that everyone else affirms your delusion that the table is square or that it's got polka dots on it or whatever, that's the line. And it's interesting because people actually understand this with most other things, right? So, for example, I don't even like to compare the two because, they're not on the same level. But to give an example that people can understand, right? In a country like the USA, you have freedom of and from religion. Okay, so I have my religious beliefs. I'm a Christian. I have my beliefs. Some people are Christians, some people are Muslims, some people are Jewish, some people are Hindus, some people are atheists. People have different beliefs. Even within a religion, there are many different denominations. Even within denominations, there are different views, opinions, and interpretations, right?
Right.
And for a free society to function, you have to accept that, okay, look, everyone has a right to their beliefs, but you don't have a right to force your beliefs on other people.
Right.
Right. So if I were running around the streets with a Bible and a sword, trying to force convert everyone to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, right? I think most people would be, oh wow, okay, that guy's an extremist, right? Like that's not you
Sniper team 1.
Yeah, like
Sniper team 1, take him out.
Hey, you can't like force everyone to, you can give your opinions, you can encourage, you can even proselytize, you have a right to all that. Of course, you have a right to worship. You can believe what you want to believe. Some people believe in Scientology, then, aliens and whatever. And everyone has a right to believe that. But as soon as you start crossing the line and encroaching on other people's freedoms, that's when you get the problem. And that's why in the past few years, this whole trans conversation has come to a head, because it's not, people play this game where they pretend, oh, it's just like people wanting, just let people be. And it's like, dude, that's not the conversation, right? We've been letting people be for decades, right? But now it's no, you are now trying to force your way. You're now trying to infringe on other people's rights. You're now trying to force men into women's spaces, into women's sports, into women's prisons. You're also trying to force people to use language that is of your choosing. So, I notice you respect pronouns. I do not respect pronouns, right? I will use biologically appropriate pronouns. I'm not going to call a man she. I'm not going to call a woman he, because as soon as I do that, I'm now giving credence to all that, right? That's not how language is used. If you're a man, you're a he, right? If someone is there and, if someone is sitting right there next to me, they want to be used, I'll just avoid pronouns altogether, right? I'll just say you, or I'll call them by their name. But, I don't even accept that first line, because as soon as you do that, it also confuses things, because it's like, well, if she is a she, why can't she compete in female sport? Right?
Right.
So the language gets confusing. So that's why I won't even refer to a male as a she. Like I'm not going to do that, because that's like the first step to the rest of the ideology. Because if I'm now affirming that, oh, actually a man can be a woman, then what is now you're now on a weaker footing to then make the argument that a male shouldn't be allowed to compete in the sport, in a female sport.
And what's interesting is she actually, and I say she.
Yeah, I know.
She,
I know you do. I'm just saying.
And like we can be where I like.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you say that. You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't we everybody take a note out of our book here? We can have conversations and do things differently and still want to like make out. It's fine. Sorry if you have a girlfriend. Sorry if my husband's listening. It's just what came out of my mouth. I don't know where it came from.
What did I sign up for?
Oh, I feel my six-pack coming back out. This is great. She competes with men when she competes in jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And, I asked, well, why is that? And she's like, well, can you imagine what that would do for the trans community? That would be absurd. And so, of course, I was explaining, going into testosterone levels and all these different kinds of things. And I'm like sitting here thinking, well, at the end of the day, I don't know what it's truly like to walk in your shoes or to feel that, from the age of 5, that there was something incredibly wrong. But at the same time, I get stuck in this parallel where I'm like, whoa, if we're all souls having a human experience. And I feel like I get like twisted sometimes where I'm like, okay, well, is this, because part of me has got the whole, you know who David Icke is?
Yes.
Yeah. So I brought this up in a few different podcasts, but 2016, I went and listened to him lecture, right? So when I used to hear, I think I mentioned to you, I was way down the rabbit hole from 2008 to 2012. And when I came across his stuff, I was like, whoa, that shit's way too out there for me to even comprehend. But eventually, 2016, went and listened to him lecture. And from like 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, he so eloquently like made everything make sense, right? And he's gone to like the oldest tribes in Africa and interviewed them about this and that. And you know, just his story. I was like, wow. And he got towards the end, and apologies for anybody listening that's listened to previous episodes and you're like, you sound like a broken record. But he said, mark my words, you know, you think the bathroom situation is an issue now. You're not going to be able to talk about this in the near future, or you'll be ostracized from society. And that their end goal is essentially to create a genderless society so they can then turn us into droids or, you know, what have you. And
something that would have sounded so ludicrous even 10 years ago.
Right.
And you can literally see, okay, you are here along this path.
Yeah. And he was like, walked us through it. He's like, it's going to start with wearables, like your Apple Watches, and then projectables, and then it's going to be injectables. You know, so
yeah, I'm not doing any of this. Just for anyone wondering, like I'm totally out. I opt out. Just completely opting out of this social experiment.
Yeah, that's a big X.
It's a no for me, dog.
That's a big no for me. So to hear that and that seed being planted in my head, and then, you know, me oscillating back and forth, because I have, you know, this other line of thinking where, you know, if beliefs control everything, and if we are souls having a human experience, right? But then, of course, religion is going to impact that to a certain degree, because Christianity, we have one life, we die, we go to heaven, you know? So this idea that there's parallel universes, or this is a simulation, or God is a race of aliens, or like, fuck, who knows, right? At the end of the day, I do my best to keep an open mind and say, I know nothing. You know, I just am open-minded. But to what extent are you too open-minded that you're allowing?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. This is why I made that point about objective reality and objective morality. Because once you lose that, your society is on the path to hell. Because it all just becomes subjective opinion, right? It's even when, and oftentimes people use some types of postmodernist language, even when they themselves don't even realize they're doing it, because it's so permeated society, right? So even when people say things like my truth, your truth, his truth, her truth, that's postmodernist language, right? The idea that everyone has their own truth. There is no actual truth. It's all just opinions.
Right.
Right? So if someone says, oh, you know, I identify as a gerbil, then, and that's my truth, that's my lived experience, another postmodernist term, then that's the reality. And because we live in, you know, there's a book written by Carl Trueman called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, which really, really explains. Like, anyone who's remotely interested in these type of topics should read that book, because it goes deep, you know, a century plus back into the origin of all these things that are now coming to a head. But he defines the time that we live in as the age of expressive individualism. And in the age of expressive individualism, nothing is more important than the individual and their thoughts and feelings and beliefs around themselves. That is their identity. So in the past, you know, so if you ask someone, you know, who you know, how do you identify? Someone said, you know, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a Christian, I'm a carpenter, I'm these things, right? That's how people identified. That's how people related to themselves. Now it's about feelings. You know, how do you feel? Your feelings are not just your reality, but your feelings are reality. That's why when you get these like woke, you know, progressive lefties who are all on board with this trans stuff or whatever, it's why they talk about, you know, they'll say someone like myself is erasing, you know, like I'm erasing someone, right? Or I'm, you know, they'll even go as far as using words like genocide, right? If you don't agree with them, right? So, you know, they'll say, you know, words are violence.
Right.
You know, they equate words with physical violence, because if you are attacking or denying their claim of who they are, it is like erase to them. it's like you're erasing their identity. You're attacking them. It's why they call it violence. It's why they call it genocide. It's why they say you're harming people, right? They'll say my words are harming people. It's transphobic. It's this. It's hateful. I'm like, I'm not spreading any hate. I'm not attacking any individual. Nothing. You won't find anything I'm saying there that's hateful. But in this era of expressive individualism, where it's all based around self-identity and the ego, any denial or even questioning of that cannot be tolerated in their world.
And you said it, the ego,
Yes.
right? And that's why that resonated with me so much when you were talking about the narcissism.
Yes,
Because it's
exactly.
like, how self-centered is that?
Extremely.
You know, for like, to go back to the alcoholic comparison, and, you know, to think that like, okay, well, it's a small percentage of us, but expect the rest of society to go and drink in their closet at home by themselves and not enjoy drinking because everybody else can drink like a normal human being. And ever take a flight together and somebody, you know, asks if we want a glass of champagne, I'm gonna be like, I could bite your ear off or try and fuck you in the bathroom. If I'm with Zuby, I'll say I'll try and make love to you in the bathroom. It could go either way, so be prepared. But so in saying that, wow, a full circle. Now, the other thing that I was talking to Janae about, which I feel like I didn't inject enough concern over, is the fact that there's, was it called social contagion?
Yes.
Right. So my challenge, and she was unfamiliar with Dylan Mulvaney.
Okay.
And, you know, I had even posted something on Instagram about my experience with Janae and saying, hey, you know, let's come from a place of love. And it was really mind opening and, you know, to hear the other side of the coin from somebody who is, and when I say this, truly trans, right?
What does that mean?
Yeah. So when I say truly trans, I'm saying somebody who has grown up their entire life feeling that they are the wrong sex. Something is completely wrong, you know, and whether people want to classify this as a mental illness, just like alcoholism or addiction or an eating disorder, you know, I don't know. I don't know what that would be classified as, but to feel that to such a degree, because it's, you know, she lost all of her major sponsorships, right? When she was outed in 2015. I mean, it was like celebrity status, like traveling all over to expos. And unlike what's happening now, where these young people are seeing people like Dylan get sponsorship after sponsorship after sponsorship, and it's just the glamorous life. Yeah. Right. So it was the exact opposite for her. And I thought, wow, that's quite interesting. And then, of course, the loss of strength when going on estrogen, and then the battle with that. And like, it just sounds like so much turmoil where I'm like, why would anybody want to choose that and put themselves through that path and have to fight with those inner battles of, you know? And then I've looked at people coming out with, you know, scientific facts around the brain chemistry, and there's just so much information out there that I'm like, and fuck, now with AI, you're like, okay, what's fact and fiction? Like what, like we're really getting ready to jump off the deep end here. But, you know, so I was listening with an open mind and saying, okay, a true trans person, but I'm like, all right, so that's like me saying, as far as in the alcoholism world, you know, only you can say that I'm an alcoholic. I mean, myself, I can only say I am an alcoholic. Nobody can say, Zuby, you're an alcoholic. Like, you yourself have to come to terms and admit, right? That's our first step. Admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. And from there, so it's like, okay, who am I to say whether or not this person is whatever? But then we get into the area of, I was, you know, because I've even gone out as far as to reach out to, there's somebody that follows me on Twitter, and they commented like, oh, thanks for your personal development stuff. I really am trying to do better in my life, and I really appreciate it. And I was like, thanks, my man. And they said, oh, actually, we identify as femme. Right. And I was like, oh, I apologize. Thanks for being cool. I'm old, you know, what have you.
Yeah, your response is different from mine. Right?
Yeah. So I even went as far, and I got on a Facebook call with this kid, because I'm like, listen, listening to a little bit about their life and, how they were brought up. And I'm like, do you suppose that maybe there's some trauma there that needs to be looked at in terms of like we're just I feel like it's just like, where do you even start?
Yeah.
But you bring it up and it's so, like you said, ingrained. And then there's the feelings part that comes in. And it's like, we've completely lost the ability to separate, our ego from, I don't even know. Like, it's got me to so...
Ego from reality.
Yeah.
It is, and, the reason why I even, kind of asked that question is, like, how is someone, if someone says that someone is really, genuinely trans, I'm like, what does that mean? Right? Like, where's that line? And where are all those people in the rest of the world? Right.
You mean like where are they like?
Yeah.
So
What I mean is there's this epidemic. I don't know how many 1,000% quote unquote transgenderism has increased in Western countries.
I was hoping you had a graph
since it's been promoted, right? But it's like spiking. I mean, you've now got like 20 times as many, Generation Z, Zoomers identifying as, somewhere along the LGBTQ spectrum.
Right. I think it's like
the older. It's like 1 in 20%.
You're right.
20%. It's like, okay, how is it doubling every generation, right?
Right.
Like, this is clearly a trend. This is clearly social contagion. You've got TikTok. You've got these influencers out there. You've got all the, I've met people who their child is the only person in their whole class who identifies as straight, right? Like, you really, you're going to tell me that's not a social contagion? And why is that only happening? How come it's only happening? Well, why is this happening so much even more in liberal cities, even in the same country, and liberal states? And then what about the rest of the world? Like,
right,
where are all these people in the Middle East and in Africa and in Asia? Like,
Would one argue, though, that it's not safe they'll die?
I mean, if you were talking about, like, homosexuals, yes. But if you're talking about, quote unquote, like, I think gender dysphoria absolutely exists. There are certainly people who feel uncomfortable with their sex, or they feel that they should be the opposite sex, whatever. 100% that
that's
exists.
trans. That's what you consider trans, though, right?
Well, that's gender dysphoria.
Is that the same thing, though?
No, not really. I mean, like, a lot of people have temporary gender dysphoria. Like, vast majority of people outgrow it. It's not rare for a child. It's not rare for a girl, especially a girl who has like a lot of older brothers or whatever, to go through a stage in her life where she wants to be more like, we used to call them tomboys.
Oh yeah, right.
Remember those?
I used to wear my dad's underwear and like let him hang out in my baggy pants.
Yeah, like imagine if you were growing up in the here and now, right? They'll be like, oh, okay, your daughter is actually a boy, right?
That's
they'll be on this
concern.
Yeah, they'll put you on the speed treadmill to get you on hormone blockers and eventually to, cut off your boobs and do all these other things, because they'll be like, oh, obviously, oh, she likes blue, she likes playing with trucks, she likes her hair this way, she doesn't like dresses. Okay, obviously, and this is literally happening. Like, this is actually happening even with children, which is the most grotesque part of this all. And it's not uncommon for little kids to have that, or little boys, they've got 3 older sisters and they're being raised by their mom. They're surrounded by women all day. Oh, they want to try on their mom's heels. Oh, they want to try on their sister's dress, whatever. This does not mean that your boy is actually a girl. It just means that he's going through this phase. He's a child. He doesn't even know anything. They don't have a concept of this stuff. So when you're seeing people talking about, I don't know, like a 5-year-old knowing they're trans or whatever, I'm like, stop. Like, it's just weird. I have strong views on this. Like, I don't really give it any quarter. I recognize the dysphoria, and I recognize trying to thread the needle between being kind towards individuals and being respectful towards individuals.
But we don't get that back, right?
Look, everything's a two-way street.
Right.
Everything is a two-way street, right? And I will be absolutely kind, absolutely polite. Like, it's funny because, there will be people out there on the internet who want to try to call me this or call me that or whatever. I'm like, okay, go out there, find a trans person who I've actually, been mean to or discriminated against or insulted. You can't, right? Like, you can't and you won't, because I'm always going to treat a human being like a human being. I'll treat any person with respect and dignity and, basic civility that's offered to me. What I won't do is lie. I won't lie, right? I won't say that a man can actually be a woman. I won't say a woman can actually be a man. I won't call a man she. I won't call a woman he. I won't say that a man can menstruate or get pregnant or whatever. I won't say a woman can have a penis, because these are lies. These are objective biological falsities, and they have real repercussions, as we're seeing, right? It's not just, oh, okay, you just say this thing and there's no consequences. It's like, no, there are real consequences to this, right? This push is not for mere tolerance. This push is for, and again, by the way, I'm talking about the trans activists here. I'm not even saying that I don't even think that the average person who considers themselves trans is even on board with all the goofiness that
I 100% agree with you.
They're pushing, and this extremism, trying to force this and trying to force that and trying to mess with children and trying to put men in women's prison. Like, I don't think they're on board with this, but these are the loud voices. These are the ones pushing the ideological agenda, and it's the ideology and that whole basket of everything and the downstream ramifications of that I and many other people are concerned about. And the truth is,
and that's it. It's a concern. It's not like people are like, you said the word genocide earlier, and I'm like, 100 addicts die a day of opioid overdose, and that's not fentanyl, that's not alcoholism, that's not methamphetamines. I was like, and that's just in the United States.
It's more than that. It's more.
So
over 100,000 a year. I think it was 115,000.
I'm really bad at math.
No, it's okay.
So you worked that out for me,
and
it's a lot more than that.
It's about 300.
But we're not having that conversation, So you're right. It's like, okay, well, what are the long-term repercussions? And that's the part where I started realizing that this was something I needed to raise awareness around and have different conversations with people, because when I started this brand 10 years ago, it was to make life easier for teenage girls.
Interesting.
Right? And now it, of course, became a clothing line and so forth. And back then it was just Snapchat.
What's a girl?
What's a girl? Yeah.
That's where we are now.
It's
where we are.
I know, and then I get all pissed off. I'm like, hey, I haven't, let me tell you, I haven't slept in 2 months. There's this thing called perimenopause. This is this beautiful phase of a woman's life that can evidently last for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
All right? You don't just rock up here and get to put on. So I was getting real salty.
Oh, okay.
I'm like,
just identify as someone who doesn't have it.
Right. Oh,
and then if anyone suggests you do, call them a bigot.
A bigot. You damn bigot. You damn bigot.
It's fun. I know why people do it, because it is actually quite fun. I've tripped people up with it a few times, and like they're not really sure what to do. They're like,
what's going on here?
Pronouns.
Right?
He's got a beard. He's got a beard, and like, I don't know.
I'm completely confused right now. But yeah, it was the part with kids, and I do you remember 13 Reasons Why? It came out on Netflix.
I'm not familiar.
It was a series on it was basically glorifying suicide.
Oh.
And
on Netflix.
Yeah.
Glorifying it?
Glorifying it. Yeah, it was youth suicide and self-harming. And after the second season, it got the boot because there were,
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, statistical data showing that there was an increase in the numbers after the show came out. I can send you the links. Yikes. And so I look at stuff like that, and I'm like, my gosh, how big? We don't even know.
We need Jesus.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Christians look at these situations and are like, I told you all, right? This is what happens when you start trying to invent all your own, just wipe out everything we know and have based our societies upon, and try to start from scratch with this, genderless slate. And it's dysfunctional. It does not work.
Well, even I read something earlier too, like that the kid I was talking to, right? And because I said there was this bigger woman who was going down the aisle on, I don't know if she was in business or first class, right? And she had to turn. You're
so politically correct. It's funny. It's funny because you're super not politically correct,
right?
But you're also really politically correct. As soon as you said that, I was like, and I realized what video you're talking about.
Yeah.
You said bigger woman, and I was like, and then I was like, oh, okay, I know, okay,
right,
huge,
right,
huge, morbidly obese.
Yes, she's a big girl.
Got it.
And I said I retweeted the thing, and I said, hey, just a reminder that there are a lot of hormonal issues that pertain to women. And then I put in brackets, females. And I said ... Yes, I said females in bracket. And I said such as lipedema, which only affects females. It's called the fat disease. Endometriosis, PCOS, and then of course those that are more geared towards females, but obviously men get it as well. But hypothyroidism, right? And then the autoimmune version of that, Hashimoto's, which can really fuck up your metabolism, and no matter what you do. Anyway, point being, like where you draw the line. And then of course I've had my own experiences where being like absolutely ripped up, shredded, and motherfuckers are like, you look as fit as a fiddle. And I'm like, yeah, I'm chewing up 80 milligrams of Oxycontin and want to blow my head off, but I'm healthy. Yeah. So, I tend to keep, again, do my best to keep an open mind, because we never know what that person's going through. But in saying that, I wrote, comma, but last I heard, we're getting rid of the word female, so carry on. Yeah. And, I had, somebody say, nobody's getting rid of the word female. And,
yeah, they are.
Yeah. Am I tripping? Like,
no, you're not tripping.
Okay.
I saw an ad 2 days ago. I don't watch TV, but I've only been in the U.S. for not even 2 weeks as we record this. And I saw an ad, some big pharma medicine or whatever pharmaceutical they were pushing, and it literally said, instead of women, it said people assigned female at birth. That's what it said. Instead of women, like in the little, what do you call them? Not the subtitles, but like the sort of captions at the bottom. It literally said
the ticker that scrolls across.
Yeah,
the
it
bottom.
said people assigned female sex at birth, instead of just saying women, because it was saying it hadn't been tested on some certain demographic. And I just noticed the language, and I was like, wow, that's instead of saying women, you're saying or female. No, specifically female, right?
Right.
It says people assigned female at birth.
Right.
And I was just like, what a bastardization of language.
I know, right? And then I start to question myself, and I'm like, oh, maybe that isn't true. And it was just that one random ass school in the 5th grade.
No, people always try to gaslight you, It's not happening, but it's good that it is.
The other thing I saw was that, it's not trans women, because that was the other thing Janae was saying. Like, there are no... it's not trans women that are the issue. Like, there are more senators who have been, fined or busted for, having indecent exposure in bathrooms than trans women. And I'm like, okay, interesting. I didn't fact check that. Or, you see the memes about, or people stating, oh, I'd rather have my kids, I'd feel more safe with my child reading with a drag queen than being with a Boy Scout leader or a priest, and I'm like, regardless, at the end of the day, pedophilia is not, as we say, a bipartisan issue. Like, it is through and through the fabric of society, which is sadly.
But it's part of the push.
Yeah.
That's part of their push. They want that added on. Right? And in fact, they're already eroding the idea of consent. This is actually the most dangerous part of this entire argument that people are making when it comes to children.
I'm getting your point, and I want you to finish it.
Okay. Well, if you're saying that a 12, 13, 14-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever, can consent to a gender transition, which can include both hormonal and surgical intervention, then you are annihilating the concept of age of consent, right? If a child can consent to those things, from that perspective, there's no logical, rational logic as to why they couldn't consent to sex.
That's fascinating.
That is natural. That is the natural progression of this argument.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and that was super disturbing.